Hi, and welcome to the November episode of Spotlight on UNBC. My name is Rob Van Addercombe. On this program, we'll preview a big conference coming up at UNBC next month, and we'll visit the Nass Valley north of Terrace for a look at an innovative First Nation Studies program focusing on Nisga'a language and culture. We'll also have two perspectives on the installation of new UNBC President Charles Jago. Later in the show, we'll hear from two teams of academics and administrators who debated whether UNBC actually needs a president. But coming up next, highlights from the official installation ceremony here on Spotlight on UNBC for November 1995.
Men and women from throughout this region believed in the idea of a university of the North. They worked hard and they succeeded.
I can easily predict that these will be seen as the golden years of this university.
You and I have been involved in a process that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
You can value education and go elsewhere and get the same information. But if you value what you get out of it as a person and your input into it, then UNBC is an awesome experience.
I take pride in opening the university, and I wish you all, in whatever capacity you serve the cause of learning, a bright and successful future.
UNBC's new president arrived last month, and he was officially installed during an October 19th ceremony at the Prince George Civic Center. It's a long-standing tradition at universities that new presidents are officially installed, and judging by the number of faculty and their academic regalia, there was a traditional element to the ceremony. But in a speech to the 350 people in attendance, new President Jago spoke of a university more set on the future than rooted in the past.
We look to the future because we know, or at least we think we know, that we must change in order to survive and to retain our relevance. Our traditions station us in time and define us as an institution, but there is a stark reality lying ahead of us, which we must first perceive in order to navigate, and navigate in order to stay afloat. Those involved in the initial planning of UNBC have peered into this obscured reality and attempted to modify the traditional university in order to adapt it to a future as yet only dimly perceived. There has been a commitment to interdisciplinarity, to the creation of faculties that combine academic and professional programs and disciplines in new ways, to the development of unique programs in cooperation with colleges and Aboriginal councils, to regional program delivery, and to experimentation with new educational technologies. In the struggle between the traditional and the new, a struggle which takes place on every university campus, UNBC has managed to create an interesting blend of the established and the innovative to create a distinct, and I would suggest valuable expression of the idea of the university.
Many people are expecting that the future for universities includes new financial challenges brought on by expected cuts in federal transfer payments. The same week as the installation ceremony, for example, there was a faculty strike at the University of Manitoba, and students at UBC protested reports of a 50% rise in tuition fees.
In this competition between the currents of tradition and innovation, it is the spirit of the university that serves to keep our canoe afloat. But what constitutes the source of our direction and our momentum? From my viewpoint, the source of our direction comes from our ability to serve the society of which we are a part. It is service, not self-service, that is the source of our future success. In this regard, I believe the University of Northern British Columbia has both special obligations and special opportunities. If honored and exploited, these obligations and these opportunities can help make UNBC not just another useful post-secondary institution serving a particular region, but a unique university with sufficient areas of recognized programming and research strength to become a university of national, if not international, distinction. These obligations and these opportunities derive from many sources. From our resolve to work with our educational partners in Northern British Columbia, both the school districts and the colleges, in order to develop innovative joint programs that make the most effective and the most imaginative use of our combined physical and human resources. From our location in a region rich in natural resources, and from a people who are intent on harvesting those resources in a sustainable and environmentally responsible way. From our commitment to work with Aboriginal peoples to assist them in the recovery of their languages and cultures and to enable them to acquire the expertise they need to develop their communities and their resources. From our ability to work closely with industries in this region in order to foster economic growth. I could give other examples of the opportunities we as a new university have. Suffice it to say that through expanded educational programming and the application of research skills to issues of common concern, the interaction of university and community in Northern British Columbia can be, I believe, mutually enriching. Such interaction can certainly lead to the development of a great university, and Northern British Columbia deserves no less.
Thousands of women from around the world met in Beijing, China this past summer for an international UN conference on women's issues. Several hundred women from across Canada will meet at UNBC in mid-November for the first National Women's Conference since Beijing.
This is the first forum for women to get together to talk about it and to look at the strategies that were devised in Beijing. And this is especially important for Northern women who normally wouldn't have access to something like this other than television. They're coming over here. They're going to be in Prince George. They're going to be at UNBC. There's going to be sessions about it. There's going to be talks about it. And it's a great time for people to actually do some networking and to find out strategies for the women's movement for the next decade or so.
The November 10th through 12th conference has four main themes: women, education and work, women and community building, women, environment and sustainability, and violence against women.
As far as violence against women, there's going to be discussions about the relationship between addiction, alcohol problems, and violence against women. There's going to be a panel discussion about the Melanie Carpenter campaign. That's probably most familiar to people.
The issue about stranger violence has been the one that's been highlighted by the Canada's Daughter campaign, and particularly in response to the brutal murder of Melanie Carpenter. This particular tragedy highlighted the dilemma of the justice system with respect to the laws and the human justice issues around paroling and mandatory release of offenders from our prisons, since it was a former offender who is perceived to have been the murderer and is certainly known to have been the abductor of Melanie. We have other cases in a very short period of time that highlighted a similar kind of crisis. The campaign that became known as the Canada's Daughters campaign picked that up and argued quite effectively and with a lot of sympathy across the country that we really have to think about the family as the victim, because the family has lost a cherished member. However, women who are in danger are most likely to be danger in people that they know, and 9 times as many women are murdered by people they know, most commonly an intimate partner, than by a stranger. And so it is the home that really is the locus of danger for a majority of women who suffer from violence, not the outside world.
The Melanie Carpenter story is so well known because of the media coverage it received. Joanne Fiske worked on the study with 4 UNBC colleagues, and they say that amount of attention wasn't always constructive.
I think that one of the problems is that the media is programmed to respond very quickly to events as they unfold, and that these events are so stark and they are so horrible that the media does follow those events very quickly. There's very little time in the media, I think, to reflect, to look at the larger picture, and it's very much a reactive form of communication rather than proactive. I think that I blame the media, if blame is the right word, but I would hold the media accountable insofar as the media gives less attention to placing these kinds of stories in the full context of what's going on in Canada, and really gives less attention, I think, than it should to providing a forum for more reflection and thought, and to give more avenues where people can actually share strategies as opposed to responding to headlines.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity to get our voices heard on a national forum as Northern women, as Northern communities, as women living away from the urban centers. This is a good opportunity to do that and to have a voice and to have a say in future strategies as far as the women's movement, because certainly the circumstances here of Northern women here, of First Nations women, of women with disabilities in the North are a lot different from women with those same kind of characteristics in other parts of Canada.
A UNBC student has won a national award for her involvement in helping to establish the UNBC Student Society. Erin Kinghorn is a 4th-year political science student who was the top vote-getter in balloting last year for the inaugural Student Society Executive. She is currently the Director of Social and Promotions for the Society, and she also conducts public tours of the Prince George campus every Sunday. The Scotia Bank Award of Excellence is awarded annually to a Canadian university or college student who has made an extraordinary contribution to their school. A UNBC Resource, Recreation and Tourism student has won research monies totaling nearly $20,000 to examine the balance between recreation and conservation in BC parks.
My project is within Mount Robson Provincial Park. I'm looking at developing an area management plan for the Moose River route, which is east of Mount Robson, but it also ties into the Berg Lake Trail on the north side of the Berg Lake Trail. The first question that we're asking in this study is basically, is recreational use of the Moose River route appropriate? And if it is appropriate, then what kind of facilities should we have there and what kind of activities should we have? So that's basically what we're looking at in the Moose River route. The conservation recreation issue is a difficult one to answer because that's the main, that's the big question with BC Parks, is how much is too much and is anything appropriate? BC Parks tackles that issue by zoning the big parks like Mount Robson. Mount Robson has 4 different zones. The highway corridor, which is an intensively used area, is zoned as intensive recreation. The Berg Lake Trail, which sees a lot of backcountry use, and you have helicopters in there, and you have commercial guides operating trips in there, is a natural environment zone. So in that sense, you'd expect to see those kind of activities. My study area, the Moose River route, is zoned as wilderness recreation. So within that zone, you can see the odd bit of helicopter use, and you can see some commercial activity, but facilities are pretty minimal and use is pretty low. So given the constraints of the wilderness recreation zone, my project is trying to find the balance between recreation and conservation in the Moose River route. I'll be doing that by talking to people from the public and people from BC Parks and Parks Canada and getting a feel for what they think is appropriate, all within the restrictions that's been placed on that area by the wilderness recreation zone.
UNBC Physics professor Mark Shegelski is teaming up with a Dalhousie University professor to examine friction at the atomic level. The project is being funded by the Office of Naval Research in Washington, D.C. to the tune of $500,000.
I'd like to start off by showing some similarities and some differences in friction for different kinds of materials and the same kind of materials. So I'm going to take this plastic cylinder and put it on this ramp, which is inclined at a certain angle, and let's see, it's light, let's see if it moves down the ramp. Well, this light object seems not to want to move down the ramp. Place a heavier object, and it does slide down the ramp. Does the object slide down the ramp because it's heavier? Not necessarily so, because here I take the same material, but it's thinner, less massive, and it slides. It's the type of material that really matters. Here again we put the plastic, we give it a bit of a nudge. It does make it, but it doesn't travel very fast. We understand a little bit, we understand some things about friction, but what we don't understand are the fundamentals, the real basic workings of friction. Nobody yet has gone from our very fundamental and basic formulation that we understand at the atomic level and carried that all the way up, step by step, up to the macroscopic level where we see things and where we see these different behaviors. It's a case of going from the beginning to the end, filling in all the steps, doing it properly and completely, and it just hasn't been done yet. Very few people actually stop and say, why? Why does this slide so well down this material, whereas this other thing doesn't slide very well at all? What's going on? What makes this stickier than this other thing? And those are the kinds of questions that are really the penetrating, fundamental ones that lead to the big rewards.
A UNBC nursing professor is collaborating with the Prince George Pregnancy Outreach Program to implement strategies for Aboriginal women to quit smoking during pregnancy. The project is being funded by Health Canada and will involve pregnancy outreach programs in centres across northern BC.
The babies who enter intensive care nursery, the biggest reason those babies there are is because of smoking of the pregnant mother. And it's not just a specific income class or a race, it's globally. And it's a huge problem, and those babies are low birth weight. A lot of women don't understand what that really means. You know, they think, well, that's great, I'll have an easier labor and delivery because I have a small baby. But they're not aware of what the medical implications are for their babies later, what that can mean for the baby's development later on. And the other thing is, too, they'll say, well, I know my sister smoked during her pregnancy. She had a 10-pound baby. You know, I know my mother smoked, and I'm okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with me. And so how do you get over that? I think that's the exciting thing about this project, is it's going to be really challenging to see what are the philosophies of approach that do have an effectiveness with the women. Do we go with a real emotional appeal, or do we go with a real rational or a scare tactic, or is it going to be the appeal that we go that work as much as with the women as with their partners and their family and the community to greater?
There's a real sense of ownership and meaningfulness that comes when you involve clients in the whole process, and that it's much less meaningful to people when you say, okay, this is the smoking cessation intervention that you are going to use, as opposed to saying, what kinds of things make sense to you? What has the most impact? What do you think will help the people that you know who are in similar situations? So we see it as being absolutely essential.
Although the main campus buildings have been complete for some time now, building activity is still evident on the Prince George campus. Construction of the new daycare center has been underway since the summer, and the complex is on target to open in the second semester of this academic year. The daycare will have activity rooms and outdoor play areas for about 60 kids, and the service will be available to students, employees, and the general public. The director of the UNBC Human Resources Department is organizing a local effort to bring about a dozen children from the former Soviet Republic of Belarus to northern BC next summer. Belarus was poisoned by radioactive material following the Chernobyl nuclear accident a few years ago.
The Relief Fund has been going for a number of years now, I think for 5 years. It was launched following the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, and it was a way that people in Canada felt that they could contribute to assisting the Republic of Belarus with all the problems that they were facing as a result of the Chernobyl explosion. There's concerns about food that might be grown in gardens there. There's concern about the quality of dairy products that they can get because the animals are eating the grass that's growing in the contaminated soil and so on. So there's higher than normal rates of cancer, particularly leukemias.
There was an international flavor to a small ceremony held at the Prince George campus last month to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the World War II liberation of Holland by Canadian troops. The university was awarded a 400-bulb tulip garden. This was supplemented by a donation of 2,000 more tulips by landscape architect Jay Lazarin, contractor Wayne Watson, and architects Stuart Ross, Alan Greenwell, and Dave Bryan. New UNBC President Charles Jago helped plant the bulbs along with a pair of World War II veterans and a number of UNBC students. First Nation Studies is one of the academic specializations at UNBC, and it's one program where partnerships are critical. A partnership between UNBC and the Nisga'a House of Higher Education has borne one of the most interesting programs at UNBC. The Nass Valley is located north of Terrace and is one of the more remote parts of northern BC, but it's fertile ground for the university. A couple hundred Nisga'a students are registered in the Nisga'a Studies program, making it UNBC's most popular regional offering.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Stevens and I'm from Greenville, and I'm looking forward to taking the First Nations course through UNBC here in the Valley. When I was away at the University of Victoria working on a different degree, I took a couple of anthropology courses just as electives, and when I found out about them offering the Nisga'a language and culture course here, I thought it would be neat to study our culture from an anthropological perspective right here in the Valley and be exposed to that culture at the same time.
The most exciting aspect of this new program is the vision and the reality. The vision of having learning centers in each of the communities where students can study at home. And there's an awful lot of research to support that student success. The closer they are to home, the more successful they are. The support programs that you offer, the more successful students are. And the spin-offs of students studying in the Valley and studying at home are insurmountable. Social problems will decline, and appreciation for life and academics, a resurgence of the language and of the culture. I mean, all of that increases dramatically with students studying at home. And that excites me a great deal.
Hi, my name is Bert Azak. I'm from Gitwing South, and I'm looking forward to taking up university courses through UNBC and Wilp Wilxo-oskuhl here in the Nass Valley. The one I'm interested in is the environmental studies. And I hope to be able to get through that as well as resource management. And my goal is to become a registered professional forester.
Like many First Nations communities, we haven't basically accepted the notion that our children would be leaving home for higher learning. And myself, and my, I guess, other colleagues of my age went away to residential school. And then on top of that, you're away again for extra learning. So based on that experience, it was felt that we should have a little bit more on hand with respect to higher education. And so the idea some years ago was born that we should begin working at developing Wilp Wilxo-oskuhl, the Nisga'a House of Learning, and offer it here in the Valley. And it's taken some years now, and it's going to be a wonderful experience for our children.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Azak. I'm from Gitwing South, and I'm looking forward to attending UNBC. I think one big part of it is the cultural aspect, that students can stay here and still go through all the culture, things that go on year-round. Like I missed a lot of it going to school down south for about 6 years, and a lot of things I wasn't able to take part in because I couldn't be home. I didn't have the funds to come home for it. But and the food preserving, there's a lot of this, and students with children also, they have the support of their family here.
I really have to express my gratitude to the visionaries at UNBC to see that this can happen, that this is something that can happen. There are a number of people that that are, like, from the president, the chancellor, the president of UNBC, and from there on down, realize that this is an exciting venture. As far as I know, this is the first in the world where an opportunity like this it has been set up and is being fully taken advantage of, in the sense that we want to create a very good environment, one that meets the goals, I guess, of James Gosnell's vision a long, long time ago, where the Nisga's will interrelate with the rest of the world. They will be then a part of Canada and the rest of the world.
Earlier in the show, we showed highlights from the installation of new UNBC President Charles Jago. But does UNBC actually need or even want a new president? Two teams of academics and administrators debated that very question.
We need a person with exceptional ability to attract new resources, a person capable of grand-scale groveling, a person prepared for big-time brown-nosing, a person with real vision, a person who has to look up to see the hind end of a snake. Fortunately for all of us, we have found a man who is truly down to this task.
They cost money, they take up space. Who needs them? We don't need them. I get a better solution. It's high tech, folks. Who needs a president? I have developed the Macknak system. It's all here, it's all high tech. It doesn't take up much space. 3 payments of $49.95, and you got it. I'll give you a little test run. Mr. President, Ms. President, you can have your choice. Shall we raise tuition fees this year?
This is a very complex decision. I'll take it under advisement. But I am assuring you that everyone affected will be involved.
All right. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask Dr. Jago to stand up. If you do decide to vote this man in as president, do you believe that he has the stature and the presence to carry on this job?
There's just 2 reasons why I don't want us to have a president, but they are overwhelmingly good ones. You are free to applaud as I tell you what they are. Reason 1, here it comes. He's paid more than me. Yeah, that was a good one. But I've got another one. Wait for it. Here it comes. He tells me what to do. Right, well, that's all I need to say. My case rests. Now, please give me a moment while I disguise myself again. Talk amongst yourselves about the brilliance of my case while I put on my disguise. Don't you dare take that thing away for a while.
You sound like you're in a cane.
Oh, shh, 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 shh. All right, you can take away the cake.